to the PHNX Coyotes season preview show. I'm Leah Merrill here with Craig Morgan and Steve Peters, and we are going to be previewing each position category on the Coyotes, looking ahead at the 2021-2022 season. Craig, why don't you tell everyone a little bit about how we're going to do this?
Here's how we're going to structure it. We're going to do like a 5-minute discussion of an interesting topic related to the Coyotes or the league, and then we'll just do one position group per show. So we'll dive right into it. Why don't you intro us off here?
Well, I think we should start off with the centers. But before we do that, on the subject of center, let's talk about the Coyotes making the move to the Central Division.
Central. I got it.
Yeah.
Wait a minute. Petey, is that you?
I know.
When did you get here?
I've got nothing to say, Craig.
You are going to contribute to the show, right?
I may.
All right.
It's early again. I'm on coffee number 3. And when's the last time you and I talked 5 minutes on anything? You're going to have a 5-minute intro? Are you out of your mind?
And
half hour later,
Leah,
here we go.
Apparently ordered her Quiet Please sign from another
From
galaxy.
where? They do ship
It's
things
still not
overnight
here.
now.
Yes,
Have you heard of
they
these
do.
services?
There's the service
They
called
have
Amazon
overnight,
Prime.
Yeah, they ship things overnight. Really, you call them? Central Division.
Right, we're on the clock. That's 30 seconds already.
I know. You don't think I got the time to go
So
on?
the NHL, in its infinite wisdom, chose to quote unquote realign the divisions this year, which just meant, what's the easiest thing to do with Seattle coming to the league? Oh, well, we'll shove the Coyotes into the Central. That'll work because nothing says Central like Phoenix, Arizona.
Yeah.
So
first of all, before we even get further, not surprised. It's the easiest team to do anything to. It's the stepchild of the Western Conference. Let's do it to Arizona. They've had turmoil in their building, their fan base, their ownership base. Let's just do it.
let's help them succeed by moving them to the Central.
Yeah, I don't
Division.
think having the Coyotes succeed is at the forefront of the NHL brass.
It is for Gary Bettman, though. He stood by this franchise for so long. And when I did this realignment story, and again, we're going off the rails here. 5 minutes is
Seriously?
5 minutes is unlikely
We're
here.
literally at 2:05. We
Yeah,
haven't
we are.
started yet.
When I did the realignment story, I reached out to Bill Daly, the deputy commissioner, who I talked to, about a lot of things. In fact, I have a story coming up really soon. Or actually, it's already on the website. So when I talked to him about this decision, I asked why they didn't consider other realignment plans. And his response was, well, why would we do that? Why wouldn't you? Why wouldn't you try and come up with the best solution? I came up with a bunch of them. I had 8 4-team divisions like the NFL does. I even broke it down to have a logical schedule, but they didn't want to do any of that. They just took the easiest path forward, shoved the Coyotes into the Central. So now, as they embark on this rebuild, in many ways, it's going to help them to try and lose
If their
a lot
point
this
is to
season.
lose, they're in the right division
Yes,
for
they
that.
are.
Yeah.
Pacific Division with the 3 California teams, I think being a little bit weaker. Seattle's a little bit weaker. I think
Even the
do you
Canadian
want to say a
teams.
potential playoff team? Probably not, but
Yeah.
they'd be battling for it similar to last year. In the Central Division, they have no chance. Like, they've played really well in preseason. They've had some chemistry, but this Central Division has some teams on the way up and some on the way down, but they're both meeting in the middle above where the Coyotes are going to finish.
Agreed. And they have Colorado, of course.
And Colorado. So let's start with, we'll do a quick predictions because we're all, 5 minutes. We're at 3:30. We haven't
I
started
don't
yet.
know why we're taking the 5
Colorado-
minutes so seriously.
Colorado
winning the division.
wins the division, and if not the President's Trophy, they're within a point or two of the President's Trophy. This is the best team in hockey from the goaltender on out. They can score at will. They win the Central Division handily.
Who's in the mix after that? To me, it's a jumble, depending on, like you talked about. Some teams I think are on the decline, some are on the rise. But actually, I think a lot of teams in this division are on a slow decline, but they're still better than the Coyotes. But I mean, throw Minnesota, Winnipeg, maybe even the Blackhawks.
I still think one of the teams that's going to be forgotten in the Central is the Winnipeg Jets.
Yeah.
They're strong up the middle. They've got great goaltending. They're well coached. They've been to the playoffs and done well year after year recently. They were one of the teams favored to win the Cup a few years ago. Still a lot of that core is there. Blake Wheeler's still there. I've got the Jets in the top 3, if not second. They're teasing it for the season. So that's a team that a lot of people forget about. They still play heavy. They're hard to play at home. I've got the Jets at number 2.
St. Louis is in this division as well. This team won the Cup a few years ago.
A lot to prove for that coaching staff this year.
I agree. But I think they're in the mix. If I had to pick 4 playoff teams from this division, I think I would take Colorado first, Winnipeg second, and then
it's tough.
Some maybe St. Louis and Minnesota as my 3 and 4.
I feel like Minnesota 3, St. Louis 4. I feel like St. Louis is on not a decline because they're still a contender, but even the year they won, they were like horrible at the first half of the season. So they haven't shown that consistency. I feel like Minnesota, on the other hand, is on the ups.
I agree with that, the Minnesota statement. And now that they've got Kirill the Thrill signed, I think Minnesota falls into third. They'll battle with St. Louis at 4. I think that's going to be a tough spot. Chicago is the wild card for me.
Yes.
I don't know what they're going to get for goaltending for Marc-Andre Fleury, the addition of Seth Jones, Kane and Taves back together, supposedly.
Jonathan Taves healthy, right?
Yeah. And so is that enough to put them in the playoff picture? I think it is. I still have them falling all the way to 5th. But honestly, it's a team that if everything falls together, the Chicago Blackhawks could go as high as number 2 in this division, honestly. Which leaves Nashville, which is on the way down.
I don't think Nashville's a good team.
And I think they're going to be a team that you look at, their window's closed. Pecorini's retired. It's just not the same team that it's been year after year. It's not the same team that the Coyotes faced in the bubble 2 years ago. And then the Arizona Coyotes are last. I just don't see any way around it. We talk about the travel, the tough divisional schedule. I know people want to be excited that maybe there's a chance. I just don't see any way of them getting out of the Central Division cellar.
Well,
yeah. You got anything?
No, I agree. I agree.
Who are your 4 playoff teams from the Central?
I would say Colorado, obviously number 1. For me, it's... Wow, I completely just blanked on number 1. I agree with Winnipeg number 2. I think that people forget that they were the favorite to win the second round against Montreal. Montreal sweeping them in the playoffs last year was a surprise to a lot of people. They could have been in the conference final. Maybe not the Stanley Cup final, but they had a deep run. So I'll agree with Winnipeg second, Minnesota third, Chicago 4th.
Taking the Blackhawks to get in. I'm really curious about that team. I don't know what to expect from the Blackhawks. And they've got the specter of that investigation.
I know. I was just going to say that so many things going wrong for them away from the ice. We'll see.
Yeah. But you know what all those teams have in common?
They have center depth.
Yes, they have center depth.
Wow.
And there's our segue. As rough as it sounded, there's our segue into the position group we're going to talk about first for the Coyotes. And we're going to do things a little different. We're going to start with Nick Schmaltz, who is the de facto number 1 center right now. Schmaltzy, to me, he's never quite established himself. He's shown a lot of high-end skill, but he has never displayed the consistency to get to that number 1 spot, where I think a lot of people thought he could get because of his talent, because of his skill level. Your thoughts, Pete?
We've said it on this show before. Nick Schmaltz, if he can ever put it all together, can be an elite centerman in this league. And I know there are some other hockey people that will look at that comment and say, no way, he's not that good. There are glimpses throughout the season when he has the puck going through the neutral zone that he can fly, he can handle the puck well, he can make plays, and he can score. He is, when he puts it together, he's an elite player, not a good player, elite. Unfortunately, those moments are so few and far between. He hasn't been able to consistently do it, not only game to game, but within the same game. He can have one great shift and then he disappears. I mean, you saw it, you look at last season, he was even demoted to the 4th line trying to wake him up. It's hard to find a heartbeat on Nick Schmaltz sometimes. And if he can ever find it and put it together, he can be an elite player. I just don't know if it's going to happen this season. Yeah.
By the way, I should mention we left out the Dallas Stars entirely in our Central Division discussion, so they'll probably be in the mix for a playoff spot as well. Apologies to Stars fans, but now you've been mentioned, so you got your time.
We didn't? Maybe I did that in my prep.
That's right.
I was just going off.
They got 4 goaltenders. They got Sagan, Ben, and Radulov.
I forgot the divisions because last year the divisions were also different.
They will be in the mix.
I did not.
Dallas will be in the mix.
Okay, so I take it back. I don't have Chicago, and I have Chicago being competitive. I could see Dallas.
Yeah, Dallas Chicago is competitive right there with.
Yeah, they're definitely in the mix.
Chicago will be interesting. Anyway, yes, let's get back.
Back to our centers.
HK Craig. Honestly, it's a Coyote audience. HK, let's go.
So we're going to do some fun things here. We're going to tell you, or in some cases just guess as to what an NHL player's nickname is in NHL circles, and then we're going to maybe provide a better option because NHL nicknames are incredibly boring. You basically add an ER or a Y at the end.
Yeah,
and you're
Y.
done.
ER or Y.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Why is it? There's just no
I don't
creativity
know.
at all
There's
in those
occasionally there is like what was
Well,
Pat
Hammer.
Verbeek's?
Even Hammer.
Pat
That's
Verbeek's
a
was
good...
Little Ball of Rage, was it? Or Little Ball of Hate? I'm trying to remember. There occasionally
Yeah,
there
you
are
get
good
the Rat
nicknames.
because of the way he played, Kenny
Yeah.
Lindman, and you
Yeah.
get Hammer, who reflects, goes along with his last name and how he played. Goose, Goligoski, a little better than a Donor
Or Schmaltzy.
Schmaltzy. It's always the IE or Y. Schmaltzy.
So, fun little fact, schmaltz means chicken fat in Yiddish. So I'm
Wow,
I'm
you did
calling...
way too much prep for the show.
Yes,
Seriously.
I did, by the way.
Sleep at
Yes.
night.
This was a bizarre amount of prep as well. So I'm calling Schmaltzy KFC.
That's impressive. I'm going to go with Eeyore. How you doing today, Schmaltzy? Not so good. Because we just got to find that pulse in him.
Oh man.
Okay.
That's good.
What do you got? You got any nicknames for Schmaltzy?
I can't top either of those. I'm so sorry. I just have nothing to
All
say.
right. A fun fact. We're going to do some fun facts.
Okay. Well,
Yeah.
you
Yeah,
are.
we showed
Seriously,
the
you are.
number
I did a lot
stats.
of research.
We
Did a lot of
showed the
research.
numbers, but this is the stuff you can't find.
This
in
is the content you can't get anywhere else. And I did a story on, actually a couple summers ago, I actually flew back to Madison to do stories on the two Coyotes from the Madison area, Nick Schmaltz and Phil Kessel. Nick and his brother Jordan, another NHL player who's been in the Coyote system as well, they used to drive 2.5 hours with a parent from Verona, Wisconsin, which is outside of Madison, to Seven Bridges Ice Arena in Woodridge, Illinois, so they could play for the fabled Chicago Mission, which has produced a lot of Coyotes players like Christian Fischer, Christian Dvorak, Ryan DeZingle,
Vinny
Hinostroza. There you go. All those guys played for the Mission. But can you imagine that? 2.5 hours to
Just to
practice.
Yeah.
Like multiple times a week and
You've
games on the
gone
weekends.
from North Scottsdale to Glendale? Buddy. Traffic? No, I mean not that one. That's impressive for a parent to do, that kind of a commitment to get your kid to play hockey.
They used to switch
honestly,
off.
That's impressive.
Because their sister played volleyball competitively, really good. So they'd switch off where they were going on a given day. Somebody would get the brutal drive and somebody would stay local.
That is impressive. And in the winter on those roads, that's, and you know what?
That's the other side of
It
it.
pays off, right?
Yep.
I mean, good for them. We'll talk about Chikrin's, what he did for travel to play junior on the Defenseman Show.
Yeah.
And they got nothing on this.
Best case scenario for Nick Schmaltz, I think we talked about it a little bit already. Number one center who finds consistency in a game that has always featured elite skill. Worst case scenario for Nick Schmaltz remains that sort of 50-point producer who never quite elevates out of what should be really more of a middle six role. You guys agree?
I think he's a what-if player.
Yeah.
Worst case, what if? What if he would have been better? What if he could put it together? What if he can play 60 minutes? I think that's the worst case. And again, he can elevate to a number one center.
Yeah, his worst case isn't the worst case that we've given to some
he's gonna
others.
Produce points.
Yeah, he's gonna be an
Too much
NHL.
skill.
He's an NHL player, but I think it's more to see what his upside can be. So hopefully this is his year.
All right, who wants the next one?
I'll go next.
Good.
All right, bring us Jay Beagle. There he is. Look at that smile.
Wow.
By the way, how about these sweet graphics player cards?
Yes.
Seriously,
Shout
that's a
out.
lot of work people put in.
Shout out to Arnold, our
Not
graphic
Craig and I,
designer.
but some
Thank
people
you,
put a
Arnold.
lot
This
of
is
work
good
in.
Yeah.
stuff.
Arnold
Yeah.
did that?
Yeah.
It's impressive.
Arnold's buried too, and he's
I know.
just creating.
Has to cover every
Amazing
show
work.
and do this for everybody, and everybody's yelling at him to do stuff.
Well, I don't know him, Petey. Maybe you do.
I don't. Clearly.
All right, Jay Beagle.
Jay Beagle. All right. NHL nickname. Beegs or Yay?
Want an explanation on Yay?
I would
We
love
clearly
one.
do.
So the Swedish players couldn't say Jay; they'd call him Yay.
Yay.
So it apparently stuck in the locker room.
That's
They
cute.
started calling him Yay. Did
Speaks is easy. Beagie, Beager. Those would be the easy ones.
you watch Grape Ape? Beagly, beagly, beagly.
Seriously, let's date ourselves a little more. These three weren't even born when Grape Ape was
I
on.
know.
By the
Kung
way,
Kung
when he
Fooey.
says 3, it's because
But-
there's people behind the camera too.
You can
Yeah.
find retro cartoons on.
Yeah, it is. Great.
It's good
Great.
stuff.
Anyway, what his nickname should be? Snoopy. I like that one.
You
I
like
do.
that one?
The dog
Beagle.
I mean,
theme.
he's a beagle.
Snoopy.
Yeah.
Who's
See, now
the
that's
best-known
clever.
beagle?
But why can't hockey players be more clever? That's clever. Hey, Snoopy. I think that's great.
All right, thank you.
Well,
Good job, Greg.
Fun-
Clearly, I didn't come up with that.
fun fact about him. In 2018, he became the first player to win the Kelly Cup of the ECHL, the Calder Cup of the AHL, and the Stanley Cup. That's
impressive.
is a very interesting fact. Best case scenario for the role, middle six center who stabilizes the position with two-way play, parlays his season into an opportunity with a playoff team at the deadline.
You're going to hear that a lot on this list.
Worst case scenario, lack of productivity, declining game, make this the end of the road for the soon-to-be 36-year-old.
See, I think what we've seen from Jay Beagle during the preseason and training camp is the former. I think he's been impressive. I think he's played a role. I think, especially paired with Antoine Roussel, what we've seen on the penalty kill, he's been an effective player on the ice. I see him as a 3 down the middle, as a third-line center, because he can provide energy, a little bit of offense, and also defend. I think he's done everything he's been asked to do so far. I think to expect him to be a 20-goal scorer, probably not. An every night player that's eaten minutes for this team and playing on both sides of the puck, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, he's been one of the impressive guys through camp right now, and helps add to that center ice depth that they've lacked. Again, we're not talking top tier center ice depth, but Jay Beagle definitely provides that.
Good pro too. Yeah, brings a lot of experience. He'll help the lineup. He'll help the dressing room, and I know that gets overstated
it's cliche,
a lot. Good
but
in
it's
the room,
true.
But yeah,
and you see how they're performing right now in training camp. It's in part because of the character people they've brought into this team, and they're gelling together. I think that's part of what they've done.
All right. Petey, you're up.
Johan Larsson.
There's our player card.
And I'm still struggling with what the heck Johan Larsson is. What kind of a player? Like, he's played up and down this lineup all of last season and into preseason. What is he? I know the coaching staff loves him. He's responsible. They hope he can chip in offensively as well. I always, as a viewer, I want him to have just a little more of an identity of exactly what he is. But he'll be in the lineup every night. He can play as high as 2, and he can fall as much as the fourth line center. He can play a different role. I'm not even going to get into the nicknames. I'll let you handle those.
Why not?
Because
you know his nickname.
Well, Larry, but again,
Angry Larry.
That's easy, isn't it? Larry?
I like that. Came from Buffalo, right?
Actually, I don't mind that.
Yeah.
That I like that.
I love that you said what his nickname is, Larry. What his nickname should be, Larry.
Yeah, Larry. You can't change that. He's a Larry.
Yeah.
You're Larry. I like that. I can go with that.
Yeah.
And we've already said how high end he can be. He can play as a 2. I think he's going to play almost every night unless he's injured. But he needs to define who he is going to be on this Coyotes roster. That's what I want to see from him this season.
Sure, and we know certain roles that he's going to fill. He's obviously, they're going to rely on him for defense to be a matchup guy. He's pretty good on the forecheck, I think, underrated, and that helps.
Yeah, he hounds the puck really well.
And even if they're not producing that zone time that takes away from an offensive line's opportunities to score, he's going to be a PK guy probably as well. So those are some of the roles that he's going to fill. You can read the rest.
Oh, what do I have?
Fun fact.
His fun fact. He's born in a tiny town of Lao, population of 227 people. Wow, that's
on the island of Gotland off the southeast coast of Sweden.
Craig just stepping
right
on
it.
you.
Who else was born on this island? This guy. I love this guy simply for his name.
That is a great name.
Hokenlube.
Hokenlube.
Hoken.
Is it Hoken?
It's Hoken.
See, I Minnesota, we call them Hocken. Like I grew
That's
up.
fine.
You're an Illinois kid. I'm a Minnesota kid. It's Hokenlube, but that's the old Calgary Flame days.
Sounds like something you
Again,
shouldn't do.
We talked about helmets,
but
yeah, you shouldn't do that. Not on the street.
Yeah,
but
really
bad helmet too. He's one of those guys that had the bad Jofa.
Yeah, that's right. He did
those bad Jofas that everybody wore back in the in the 80s. They're horrible.
You know, when I played and used to skate up sometimes in just like stick time, I had this old Jofa that I would put on just for the fun of it. Did
you have the Gretzky Jofa, the thin one?
Yes.
See those clearly. I can't believe guys actually played in that.
No protection.
Like, like a gallon milk jug.
Yeah,
it's as thin as that.
Remember
You
when
put
you
it on
were
your
worried
head.
about filling time at the
Exactly.
beginning of this?
No, but
so you've already touched on basically his best case and worst case scenario. So
yeah, I like him. I think he's a good player, and you know what? Even though he doesn't always show up on the score sheet, and he's not a player you're going to talk about and hear on the announcers talk about on a consistent basis throughout the game, he's a guy that does the little things the right way, that coaches can trust putting on the ice at any moment in time during a game. He can do the little things. So I think he's going to get his ice time. He just won't be the elite scorer, and he might not even be the elite defender, but he does all of the things well.
All right, let's move on to Travis Boyd. Let's throw up his player card. Boyd is obviously new to the team. I don't know where he's going to fit. I mean, if he's going to play in this lineup, I can't see him playing up in the lineup. But then again, when you look at the Coyotes center depth, he may have to play up in the lineup on occasion, depending how things are going, how injuries look, how guys are performing. But Travis Boyd is just a guy who, he can do a lot of things. He's an all-around player, but nothing stands out, and he's had a hard time establishing himself as a regular player in the NHL. I think he's going to be given an opportunity to do that here simply because of their depth. But in terms of what he's going to bring,
during this preseason, he's played, again, similar to what we talked about Johanna Larsson. He's played up and down the lineup. He's played on the top line in some preseason games, and he's been on the bottom line in others. So I think he's a guy that you'll see shuffle in and out of the lineup, have the ability to play up in the top six when he's needed, and he can also play in a 3-4 spot if he's needed down there too. I think he's going to be interchangeable throughout the lineup. He's another guy that has been a little vanilla through camp.
Yeah, you liked him the other night, though. In the
I
one
did.
game, right?
I thought he has elevated his game definitely as preseason has progressed. I think he can hound the puck well, and he can be a playmaker and distribute the puck. I wasn't sure if he'd be able to crack the top four up the middle, but I think he has proven that opening night I would expect to see him playing in the middle ice for the Coyotes on opening night.
Well, it's funny that your best case was fourth line center.
Yeah,
who cements a regular.
And like I said, because of their situation, they may have to move him up. But I mean, that's where he probably belongs.
That's where he should be on most
in an
teams.
NHL lineup. Yeah,
and I hate to say it, when coaches sit around and evaluate players in different positions, you're going to hear a term a lot. Well, on a good team, well, he's a third line player on a good team,
right?
Or he'd be a third line center on a good team. On a good team, he's a fourth line player, and sometimes
he's an extra player
for the Coyotes.
Yeah,
that player's a second line player.
But in this case, with Travis Boyd on a good team, he might be just an extra player,
right?
Like he has been.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And here he's going to have to provide more than that here.
Yeah. So NHL nickname, Boydsy.
Boydsy again.
Boydsy.
Easy. I don't know him though. That you can't give nicknames unless you know the guy.
That's
right?
what I said in my notes. I have no idea what his nickname should be.
Maybe sarcastically Boyd Wonder.
Boyd Wonder.
Wow.
Oh.
Shane, chip it in. Thank you.
Wow.
Thank you. Wakey. So that, I think, to get a good nickname for a person away from the IE, Y, or ER, you need to know something about them. You've got to have a little insight to either a personal story, which we will get to on Winger Day, or not. And I think you need to know that personality or personal story to help really solidify a nickname that fits for that person.
Yep.
There you go.
Fun fact about Travis Boyd, he was teammates with former Coyote Aaron Ness with the Hershey Bears of the AHL.
Where is Aaron Ness?
Where did he just sign?
I'll Google it.
So many ex-Coyotes. Aaron Ness did sign with someone.
I'm a huge Aaron Ness fan.
Now.
Minnesota kid.
I wrote a story on him at the end of
with
last
Aaron,
season.
our producer.
He's on a professional tryout with the Bruins.
There you go. So
a huge Aaron Ness fan.
sat on the sidelines all season, and then they finally got him in the lineup.
What a character guy. Good
end of
guy.
End of the season, right? Was it
Minnesota
the second to last game? Last game? I'm trying to remember.
The last game.
Yeah, he was on the taxi squad all season, did not play
put an
a
A
single
on him
game.
last game.
Yeah, that was a nice move. Anyway,
Aaron
off topic
Minnesota.
a little bit. I think we've already talked about,
I agree.
best case scenario for Travis Boyd. Worst case scenario, he becomes that spot player again who finds himself a healthy scratch on many evenings, so he's not in the lineup.
Which is going to be interesting because we've talked about there's 14 players up front for this team that are on one-way contracts. 12 people can play. They're not going to be a team that has boring you. Well, sorry. Jesus. That they can have two extra players. They're not going to carry two extra players. They're not. It's financially not feasible when they're minor league teams. And
you don't need to do it. You might as well have the guy playing.
With 14 one-way contracts, I'm not sure how this is all going to fall out, where they're all going to play, and how they're going to work it out. I don't know yet. And Travis Boyd, there are nights that he's not going to play.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on.
Final center on the list.
Barrett Hayton. He does not look thrilled in that photo.
I bet you that's how he looks right now, too. Because remember how well he played those first two preseason games?
And then he gets hurt.
And this is the last week, how he looks.
That is unfortunate. Oh, man. Well, Barrett Hayton, we've talked about him a lot in our live shows and podcasts, but Best case scenario for Barrett Hayton is he grabs a top 6 center role and shows signs of becoming the player the Coyotes envisioned when they made him the 5th overall pick. That's a high pick. Worst case scenario, heads back to Tucson for another year, but that also might not be a worst case scenario. It might be another good scenario. So it seems like, for me, actually, his worst case scenario would be he's constantly plagued by injuries and can never make it in the NHL.
Yeah.
Because
he's had a few.
Yeah. But yeah, I'm excited about his future, whether he's on the Coyotes this year or is in Tucson this year.
And as we've talked about a lot, Tucson might be the best place for Barrett Hayton. You know, with the injuries, you didn't get to play late in the preseason. Maybe it's best that he gets some games down there, but
maybe his nickname is Roller Coaster because he's click, 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 click.
That's
click,
good
click,
because I didn't have one because, of course, they call him Hates.
Yeah, Hates. But you talk about in the draft pick, he was okay, maybe a late first round, middle first round, high, and he gets cut way up top, and then he comes back down to earth, and he's got up. He's got to he can't get injured again, and he's got to be able to find a role here. He's a guy I got excited about in preseason. He looked great the first 2 games, and you go, gosh, I don't know how they're going to keep him out of the lineup. We talk so much about his development in Tucson. How did they keep him from playing? He was that good. Then this injury sets him back again. So you get, and you're back down again. So it's going to be hard for him in Tucson mentally. He keeps getting close to being that NHL player that he wants to be, and that they thought he would play a role offensively and defensively, a 200-foot center that could play in all situations. He just hasn't lived up to that yet. And going back to Tucson again for him, it's going to be tough.
I mean, it's going
to be mentally tough.
Yeah.
I mean, he's worked hard this summer to get an opportunity to play on the big club, and to start off down there, man, it's going to be hard. And hopefully he can get the attitude and work ethic right. He's got a good coaching staff there. He's going to be surrounded with good players, and he puts in the work there. And it's just a short period before he's up here full time. Or if it's not, and it's the full season, maybe he can lead a team to a championship down there, or just at least a successful winning season. It's a huge year for Barrett Hayton. It really is. He needs.
I agree, and we say that all the time about prospects, right? But with what he's been through, he needs to show signs of life this season. Because if he doesn't, then you question his future with the organization. Yeah, and touted so high early that he's, the expectations for year after year after year, he was going to be one of those guys that brought that center depth. I don't think there was any expectation that he was a number 1 center. I really don't. But I think he's a 2-3 that you expected to have for 10 years. That you put out on the, the first minute, last minute of a period to protect the lead. Even his fun fact is related to injury. But I love this fun fact because I remember this so clearly, and I remember being so thrilled because I've said it before. I'm a Team Canada person, and not only was I thrilled for Team Canada, I was thrilled because it's a Coyotes prospect who was the one. Which the fact is, Hayton was the captain for Canada's 2020 World Junior Ice Hockey Championship team that won gold, with Hayton scoring the game-tying goal against Russia in the gold medal game while nursing a shoulder injury. Yeah, shoulder injury suffered in the semifinals against Finland when he crashed into the boards. Yep. There was an audible scream when he went into the boards, and nobody thought he was going to play in that game. And he comes out and not only plays but performs really well. And I mean, that goal that he scored too, I mean, to be able to shoot it with that shoulder injury, it was a great moment. It was one of the highlights. You talk about a guy going back to play juniors again, or experiencing things, and that was really important for him to be a leader for that team. I think that helped in his development. And they had hoped that World Junior Championship experience would just springboard him back into the NHL, and it could have. When you look at what he did there, I mean, he was a hero for Canada. Unfortunately, he was hurt. He had to sit out a while, and then the Coyotes are in a playoff push. Couldn't get into the lineup, and one of 2 years of completely disjointed development for Barrett Hayton. Well, that concludes our... Yeah, we ended on a sour note. How about that? And note. By the way, keeping time. Were you keeping time? 29:15 right now. Look at that. That is, honestly, that's impressive. Leah, you have to talk for 45 seconds. I don't know how I can compete with Petey. These are early mornings. Oh, man. Just stay out of this fight. That's the Centers.